I'm Bojana Kos. I'm a writer, editor, nosy know-it-all, gun researcher. I love Pilates and yoga and my cat. I moved to Australia when I was a toddler, and then I was raised by my parents who were first-generation migrants, so didn't speak English, and came here with me. And I'd come over with the wave of migrants from the former Yugoslavia while the war was still happening. So I guess there was quite a lot of an idea of what kind of people we were. I guess it's kind of the interesting factor of, are we dealing with neurodivergence? Are we dealing with a traumatized brain? Are we dealing with just a coping mechanism? Because I had so many things happen around identity at such a very young sort of fundamental age. Oh my God, what don't I love about my brain? I love that I see things so quickly. I sense a pattern, before I see it. I love that. And I love that my brain is really good at recognizing. It's whip fast, to the point where sometimes it almost feels like I know something before I've had time to process it. So it's, kind of thinking my brain is my best friend. Excellent pattern recognition, very insightful, and super creative. So I was initially diagnosed with ADHD. It was during COVID lockdown. I'd just gotten a new job, and I'd sort of found working from home and lockdown a bit difficult, challenging anyways. The long stretch of self-directed work they were not my friends. I found myself often going to the fridge because I was bored, or bed because I was bored, or dealing with something too hard. But then I started a new job, and I really wanted to do my best. And I kind of had the idea of ADHD floating around me for a couple of years at that point. But I definitely am one of the TikTok diagnosed ADHDs late in life. So I was 31. I had my initial sort of consultations with the psychiatrist I was linked up with, and he sort of said that I had more of an ADHD presentation, which we could chase further down the line and look into if I wanted. But at that stage, I was really just focused on confirming whether or not I had ADHD, and then considering whether meds would be a good option for me to cope. I definitely find that I need more downtime between things than a lot of my colleagues do. And I don't work in an environment where there's really time to identify, as someone neurodivergent or neurotypical. You just kind of get onto it. We just kind of have to get on with it. Although us neuro wonkies tend to find each other and tend to go together. But I tend to find that I need a bit more time to switch between tasks. And interruptions are really sort of critical for me. So I've happily gotten to a point where I can now schedule the space that I need in between things, but it's taken a really long time for me to have the space in my career to do that. I think even just a few years ago, I was definitely living on someone else's schedule, which the way my brain works with the sort of, now this is important, sort of starting a task, not being able to finish it, and then suddenly being told that something else supersedes in terms of importance. That always used to drive me crazy. So I can struggle with shifting priorities. I also just think generally there's not a lot of acknowledgement for how exhausting it can be to kind of mask and present. And I guess I spend a lot of energy day to day repressing a lot of the kind of less usual behaviors, common behaviors in the workplace, the things that sort of I can't really, or sting or do any of the things that I normally would to calm myself down in the office. So I think just the energy of what we would say masking, it can be difficult sometimes to relate to people in the workplace in particular, because you just either get that it's exhausting to be around other people and to be in an environment or you don't. The most useful thing for me was just, and it sounds kind of proofy and woo-woo, but sort of having a relationship with yourself is kind of is critical to navigating that, because no label that we put on it is going to 100% fit. I think we're very good at it when it comes to things like star signs. You read a horoscope and you're like, oh, that doesn't apply to me today. Don't worry, I'll just let it go. But then when it comes to sort of medical labels, it's different, obviously, because it's so much more heavy and sort of serious. The thing that I wish I knew was that there's no need necessarily to identify completely with what's happening in your brain. I think the most useful thing is to be able to communicate and to have frameworks to talk about the differences that you perceive in the way that you process the world, compared to the person next to you. So if that means you need more time or instructions told to you in a different way or written down, or, it's kind of mostly about cultivating a relationship with yourself in terms of knowing what it is that you need. And for some people, like being diagnosed and having that framework of talking about the way your brain works is really, really helpful. But for some people, it's not. And I know that, like, for me, being a little bit atypical or having a kind of presentation which could be explained more than one way, you always face people's judgments. I think everything you can do to empower yourself to make the right choices for you and not your ADHD best friend or your mom who maybe does or doesn't have ADHD in her opinion. The only person that can make a judgment on the functioning of your brain outside of highly specialized neurologist is you. So you've got to know what things feel like. And I think it's just been really useful to have different ways to communicate. Like, I now live in a world where I can say my brain feels fuzzy. And people know what that means. Or like, I feel like I can hear colors and people know what that means. So, I think it took me years to get to a place where I understood a little more the way my brain works and what applies to me and what doesn't. So I would say also be really patient.